Hello, homies. It is I, your pop culture Sherpa, Maddy McClain, back at it again. Welcome to another episode of Easily Entertained. We are a bit off schedule this week because if you can't tell by my sexy, raspy voice, I had way too much fun celebrating one of my absolute best friend's wedding. She's a whole ass wifey, y'all. Sorry about that last sentence. It was so much fun, and she gave me the honor of speaking at her wedding. And I don't know if you can tell by the sheer fact that I have a podcast, but I do like talking. So that was hopefully a good choice. Hopefully I did her right. But as soon as the festivities were over, and thank God, my body waited until then. My body then fought me, and now I have whatever I have. But it took me out this week. It's like nowadays I feel like it's just a cold, flu, COVID trifecta season. You know what I'm saying? And I fell victim, although I tested negative for all three. So honestly, unclear. But I went to one of those urgent clinics, you know. To me, those urgent care clinics feel like a healthcare industry's version of a casino. Okay, stay with me here. You can go to any hotel on the Vegas Strip, nearly, a random Cherokee casino or the Ritz-Carlton in Paris. I don't know if they have a casino or not, but if anybody wants to show me, I would love to go with you on your dime. Anyways, all to say, go in anywhere to a major hotel that has a casino. You'd have no idea the difference. They all pretty much look the same. You know, they all end up looking and accomplishing the same thing. You've got like the level up urgent care, or I forget what it was called, like next level. And then you got, anyways, it's all the same shit. And you in and out, honey. You sneak into the middle of a casino, snap a pic, sneak into an urgent care clinic, snap a pic of the room they put you in, and ask someone to guess where you are. And they'll be guessing all day. So, you know, anyways, so I'm at this healthcare casino urgent clinic or whatever. Got myself a Z-Pack. And I'll tell you what, that Z-Pack is bussin', honey. They pretty much sent me home with a smorgasbord of meds. So I'm kind of feeling like somewhat outside of my own body a little bit. So fair warning to this week's podcast. We're a little bit loopy-doopy, okay? But also not kind of like cracked out a bit. It's a weird feeling, but we're on the up and up. Our health is coming back and we'll be okay. Lots of shit has gone down in the meantime, and don't worry. I still stayed on top of that pop culture shindiggery. All for you, baby. All for you. So we'll start with some pop culture news nugs you need to know. We'll cover the Golden Bachelor finale, including the Hollywood Reporter expose. I'm stuttering and really having a difficult time calling it an expose because honestly, it basically just describes Gerry as being a man and having audacity as a man, which, you know, we all knew he had it in him, right? He's a boomer after all. So, love you, boomer listeners. Anyways, so we'll talk a wee bit about that and kind of the little drama that this article swept up. No, that's the opposite of what I want to say. Silly me, I'm a silly goose. Anyways, again, I tell you, loopy, I'm on medications, prescribed. And we have two other popular rappers that are finding themselves in legal hot water, including Young Thug and A$AP Rocky. And Young Thug's trial is undergoing. Oh my God, this is going to be a mess to edit. I'm sorry. Maybe I just won't, and you'll get to live with it. Anyways, Young Thug's trial is happening as we speak. So you could actually watch that live on Law and Crime if you're a psychopath like me. But I haven't done it for this trial. However, I will tell you I've kept up with the news, and if you haven't seen, honestly, the hilarious tidbits that come out that are Young Thug's defense team's kind of arguments is actually hysterical. So stay tuned for that. And God save ASAP Rocky. We cannot have him behind bars. It's simply no. No, 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 no. Let's all manifest that to happen, or not happen, rather. Plus a few new things in the ether in terms of new music that's out that you should definitely listen to. Here's a hot hint. Happy Pink Friday too. Anyways, then we'll finish it all out with a little bit of Taylor Swift's Time Person of the Year award and her in-depth article that she did with Time Magazine and some of the highlights of that interview, because she doesn't really do too many of these, despite her constantly being in the news and such, because she is the person of the year. But yeah, so it's very interesting, and it makes me love her even more. You know, she's just great. So if you hate Taylor Swift or you're sick of hearing about her, well, I invite you to, you know what? Let's have Elon Musk tell you what to do.
Go yourself. But go yourself. Is that clear? Go yourself.
Musk said this to a crowd of people at the 2023 DealBook Summit in New York, where he was basically scoffing at the advertisers for boycotting X or Twitter because of the anti-Semitic posts that he amplified there. So he said something along the lines of, quote, "If somebody's going to try to blackmail me with advertising, go F yourself. Don't advertise. I have no problem being hated. Hate away." And we all know that about Musk, that he has no problem being hated or talked about or whatever. And he has kind of clarified the post that was deemed anti-Semitic and has apologized. And he said, "I'm sorry for that post. It was foolish of me. Of the 30,000, it might be literally the worst and dumbest post I've ever done. And I've tried my best to clarify 6 ways from Sunday, but you know, at least I think it'll be obvious that, in fact, I'm far from being anti-Semitic." Supposedly, advertising revenue has fallen about 50% since Musk acquired the company. And I also don't know how long we're going to be continually saying X, the app, formerly known as Twitter, for, because it's clearly not working. It's clearly not working. But yeah, I don't think X, formerly known as Twitter, will be around that much longer. But you know, you got to give it to the man. It's pretty hilarious to see him like just ignore all social kind of cues and norms and such, and just tell them to F themselves. But anyways, now that we've covered that, I think it's time to dive into the meat, the juicy tenderloin of this episode. So let's dig on in to the pop culture news nuggets. Starting with arguably one of the more exciting news nuggets being that our girl, Selena Gomez, has confirmed that she has been in a relationship and is dating Benny Blanco, a huge producer behind a bajillion million songs that you all know and love, for the last 6 months. She'd been off of social media, as Selena does, and actually confirmed this, that they're dating, from some other pop culture news Instagram, writing facts. So confirmed by the gal herself. And, you know, at first glance, you might think, she seems a wee bit out of his league, aesthetically. But I'll tell you what, he's very cool. I love him. If you ever watched Dave, Lil Dicky's kind of a little bit of an autobiography, but fictionalized TV show on FX. If you have not, it's so good. One of my very favorite TV shows. It kind of covers Lil Dicky's his childhood and how he became Lil Dicky that we know and love and making it through Hollywood. And Benny Blanco is often in it. And Benny Blanco has worked with people from Justin Bieber, Selena herself, Brandon Urie, Tayo Cruz, Britney Spears, Wiz Khalifa, The Weeknd, Ariana Grande, Lana Del Rey, Miguel, Halsey, literally name them. He's worked with them. And he's been around as producing probably close to tens of Billboard Hot 100 songs. But our girl Selena is dating. Taylor is dating. You know what? For us zillennials, it's great to see our pop culture icons happy. So that is your news number one. Selena seems happy, I guess, from what is shown to us. And I'm all for it. Benny Blanco is also a really funny dude. He has a cooking show, actually, called Silly Little Cooking Show or something like that on YouTube. And guess he shares that with Selena too. So I bet they're cooking up some hot shit in there. Anyways, the Golden Bachelor finale was last week. So I would say, spoiler alert, but for me, fucking People magazine didn't do that on the day of the finale and totally spoiled it for me before I had the chance to watch it the day of. Like, where is our manners? And I had avoided any of the spoilers. You know, you've got Reality Steve, who seems to know nearly everything on reality shows and will typically give away who the winners are. So if you're looking for that, if you're that kind of person, that's how you can find that information. But I did not, and I was pissed. I was super pissed, but I digress. This latest season gave completely new life to the Batch Nation franchise. So much so that according to The Hollywood Reporter, the premiere earned the highest multi-platform rating for the Bachelor franchise since 2021, with a combined 13.9 million viewers. It also set a streaming record as ABC's most watched episode of an unscripted series ever on Hulu after 35 days of viewing, according to ABC. So even the data is behind that, in that this new spinoff was something that The Bachelor so desperately needed. And it's interesting. I'm going to be doing a deep dive episode on this later, but just kind of the history of reality TV in the role that it plays and how, obviously in the name, it's based on reality. But the one understanding that we all have about reality TV shows is like, it's not real. You know, everything is not totally real. There are attempts from producers that are talking in contestants, or I guess just regular old people in the shows, just in their ear about what so-and-so said and to bring this up. And, you know, Real Housewives dinners and trips, you all know what the main drama will be, you know? So that's interesting, and there was actually an article put out about this recently that I have read, so be on the lookout for that exciting episode. But I digress. With that being said, the Golden Bachelor truly brought it back up, you know, to the OG days. But before we get to Gerry's final rose and that episode and the contents of said finale, right before the episode aired last week, a Hollywood Reporter article came out, seemingly in an attempt to shatter the pedestal the nation had put 72-year-old Gerry Turner upon. It was referred to as an expose. I beg to differ. It is something that is contrary to the narrative that The Bachelor and Gerry himself were kind of spouting out in the promoting and during the season. But like, if we were all cast on reality TV for everyone to see, there probably would be a few things creatively reframed, so to speak, about our lives. You know what I'm saying? So I can't put it past him. And also part of me is like, what are we doing here? Let's leave the man alone. He's happy. He's now, he has a lady in his life and he's 72. Like, do we really need to like shit talk Gerry? But we do, because it's reality TV. So essentially what the expose really went on to say, first of all, in the subheadline, use the word septuagenarian. That's right. I'll say it again. Septuagenarian. Do you know what the fuck that means? Because I don't either. First of all, just found it kind of comical that Hollywood Reporter, of all publishers, chose to use this word and flex on us with their vocabulary grasp. But the rest of the article had no use of any wild words. But before you go crazy, I'll tell you what it means. Septuagenarian simply means just someone between the ages of 70 and 79 years old. So, yeah. Anyways, but after this expose, peeps are turning on old Gerry Turner. Gerry turning around. I don't know. I was trying to make that witty, but the meds, okay? The meds. After his past was revealed to be a little bit different. So essentially what this story is to back it up a little bit. The story that we're given by The Bachelor and promoting the show is that Gerry hadn't dated in 45 years, given his late wife, Tony, had died in 2017 due to an unexpected infection. But all of that kind of was proved to be a lie, so to speak, by this Hollywood Reporter article as they speak with an ex of his who they're calling, quote, Carolyn. Describing their 3-year relationship in which they also lived together for a portion. So, I don't know. This article seems like chomping at the bit, like super excited to be dishing this stuff. And look, I'll be the first to say that I love a juicy scoop, right? A good story. That's what we're doing right here, you and me. We're telling good stories, especially involving people you wouldn't expect or celebrities, Like this wouldn't be happening if we didn't have the juicy goss that we get. We're human. We love it. Remember, we love a good bit of schadenfreude, but it seems a little weak, and they did release this right before the finale, so I suppose later on, after having watched the finale, I kind of believe and can totally see this going down somewhat. So essentially Carolyn, who the authors of this article give her this name as she wanted to protect her identity, said that they met a month after. Well, they had already met in a previous career. So Gerry, they've said he's a restaurateur, but really that stopped back in 1985 after he sold his chain of, it's like a burger restaurant. And then eventually he did retire early, but after that he kind of picked up some other jobs here and there, like installing hot tubs and working as kind of like a medic, as like a repairman for this mental health facility, where he then met Carolyn, who worked there as kind of like an administrative staffer and assistant. So they meet there prior and had a good, I guess, working relationship. She's 13 years his junior. And a month after his late wife, Tony, died, he reaches out to Carolyn and asked her out to dinner, basically, as well as helping him with his his late wife's clothes to sell them to Dress for Success, a charity. I don't know. I mean, if I was Carolyn, I would have. Don't you see what's happening here, right? She went to her like visitation or whatever. So anyways, already a little hairy, but they started dating only a month after Tony passed away. And I guess everyone deals with grief differently, but I think we can all agree that that's a little soon, right? For somebody like an abrupt death. I don't know. So I'll just leave that there for you to make your decision on how you feel about that. But then they go on to date for 3 years. She moved in a year later. as he lived in Indiana in a big lake house. And the details of the breakup are a little... It doesn't paint him out to look very good. So this is kind of where it gets questionable. I'm reading this from the article. But Carolyn's big, long lake idyll with Gerry was about to end. She was packing for Gerry's high school reunion set to take place in October 2019. He said, quote, "I'm not taking you to the reunion looking like that," Carolyn recalls him saying as he pointed to her body. She'd put on 10 pounds from stress, she says, but certainly wasn't fat. The disinvitation led to the breakup. Gerry told Carolyn to be out by January 1st, 2020. He volunteered to cover the cost of her U-Haul as long as she paid the vendor and he reimbursed her. Which also in the article says that after they'd been dating for a few months, Gerry then made Carolyn pay rent and also had her go half and half on dinners and dates, but he would pay the full bill and she would pay him afterwards, so he looked like the big man. This is I don't know. Anyways, we continue. She spent her first day packing alone while Gerry was out. She says she was so frazzled that she fell down the stairs, requiring a trip to the ER and foot surgery the following day, as confirmed by a hospital bill viewed by The Hollywood Reporter. Gerry arrived home that night and, as Carolyn recalls, accused her of using the fall as an excuse to prolong her stay and suggested that she was planning to sue him for causing the injury. In the end, she says he refused to allow Carolyn to stay in their love nest during the final week of the 2 weeks' notice she was required to give her boss before leaving her job, because she had moved 5 hours away. He told her to go to a hotel. It was the dead of winter, blah, blah, and she might have been any one of the roseless Golden Bachelorettes told by a suddenly somber Jesse Palmer to, quote, "take a minute and gather your things." "I really wish this would have worked out," she remembers him telling her. "Call me when you get to your hotel so I know you made it safe." Hoy. So the Hollywood Reporter does their due diligence and such and has confirmed that they read some of these texts and can prove that they did in fact have a relationship. And the career thing is just dumb. Who cares? Really? We're splitting hairs here. They're using LinkedIn as a reference and all this shit. I don't really care that he wasn't a lifelong restaurateur. It doesn't really affect anything. That is fishy that he claims to have never have dated since his late wife. He was oh, it's been 45 years. And he's painted out to be this sweet little old man, But let's get to the facts here, because at the finale, at this point, he's told both Leslie and Teresa, his final two, that he loves them and that he's the one. We've seen many a bachelor go through this very moment, and it never turns out pretty. So if there's one thing we've learned, it's, yeah, you can fall in love no matter what age you are, but you can also be a dickhead too, no matter what age you are. So that's sweet. That was the article that came out, and they never really addressed it later on in some post, finale interviews and media that he and his winner are doing. He just kind of weakly brushes it off and says, I would rather not focus on that. And I did have, everyone's definition of a relationship is different and da-da-da-da-da. Sounds like something many women have heard before. But back to the finale. So we already know that it's not going to go super smoothly, but both Leslie and Teresa meet Gerry's daughters and granddaughters, who all look uncannily similar. And things seem to go really well with both of the women. It's when Leslie is leaving after meeting his family that things get super awkward and weird, and it's written all over Gerry's face. He's I don't know, he reminds me of Kermit the Frog. Just his mannerisms too, the in his voice, obviously. He gets even weirder and just kind of tries to get out of the interaction, and they have one final date, of course, with each Leslie and Teresa before he makes the final decision in the proposal. So we will see her again. And it gets even more weird at the evening portion of their date after Leslie meets his family. So much so that Leslie says, "I love you very, very much," to which Gerry responds, "That's such a special sentiment." So, feels like a breakup, and yet he doesn't end it. Leslie asks if there's something that he wants to tell her, kind of wants to get him there, but he doesn't, until eventually he leaves. And the next time that he would, theoretically see her is at the platform where he would either propose or not and break up. But thankfully, he got his shit together and he came back into the room and essentially tells her that he is, quote, going the other direction of choosing Teresa. And it's a really heartbreaking, really raw moment where obviously Leslie's really sad and upset, but first says, "So everything you told me the other night was a complete and utter lie." And it doesn't sound like she was that off base with that after he has told her to her face that he loves her and that she's the one. We saw that part, but she alludes to a lot of other things that we never end up finding out what exactly is said on their overnight date that had happened the week prior. And, it just gets really emotional and really sad and says this is how her romantic life always goes. In which Gerry responds with, to reassure her, "No, don't think that." And this is great. She says, "Gerry, no offense. I can think whatever the fuck I want." Boom, mic drop. We love her. And, of course, more tears. And Gerry says, this is the kind of quote of the episode. As he's bawling to Jesse Palmer, he took a real good girl and broke her heart, and says the only time he's ever felt worse than this is when his wife passed. And this is a goddamn close second, is quote from Gerry. So then we're taken back to the live tell audience with Leslie looking hot as fuck. Remember, she dated Prince back in the day, like, hello. I really think it was when Gerry realized that Teresa's loaded that shit changed. I don't know. I could be wrong, but I don't think I am. So Leslie reveals that she had even already written her vows after their one-on-one date, which is even more heart-wrenching after feeling confident that she was, quote, his girl. And let me tell you, the eye rolls and the looks between the ladies that were already let go by Gerry is iconic and hilarious. But then the vibe quickly changes as we're ushered into the proposal, upon which Gerry intentionally misleads Teresa, like as a joke. He gives his spiel and says, "You're not the right person for me to live with. You're the person I can't live without." And then Teresa thinks that's just so funny. And they kiss and they look actually genuinely happy. And they come back to the live tell-all studio where they're just beaming and truly do look super happy. And Jesse gifts them a honeymoon in Italy because their live golden wedding will be aired on The Bachelor or ABC on January 4th. So, The Bachelor knows how to really milk that money cow, honey. You know what I'm saying? So that's the end of Golden Bachelor, I think, season 1. I believe there will be more. The people want what they want, and so do the investors. They want that money. And speaking of money, we go to one of my favorites. We're talking about the trial that has been long awaited for Young Thug or Jeffrey Lamar Williams as he's facing RICO charges. Essentially, RICO is an abbreviation for a, set of laws designed to dismantle organized crime groups like the mafia at the time. And it allows prosecutors to group kind of seemingly unrelated acts of violence or law-breaking, criminal conspiracy or whatever to support the point that whatever is operating as this organization that's actually carrying out crimes is all related. So they don't need to necessarily prove that Young Thug He's involved and aware of each and every single violation or crime that's come out of YSL, or Young Slime Life, which is the record label that he's created. Well, it really is Young Stoner Life, but the gang itself is known as Young Slime. And it's very detailed. There's so many different intricacies about this lawsuit. So I won't try and break it all down for you because low-key, very confusing, but I'll give you the, it feels weird calling them highlights, but I'll give you the overview of the situation here. There were as many as 28 other defendants alongside Young Thug that were facing these lawsuits and allegations, but a ton have either already pled guilty and or already facing or serving their life sentence. And the defense is using this as calling them essentially snitches, and that Young Thug is not the head of this group, but rather people were taking advantage of him. The case does center on a murder of Donovan Thomas Jr. back in 2015 in a drive-by shooting. And the two rappers that have already faced charges that carried out the murder were driving a rented car that Young Thug had rented, a silver Infiniti Q50 sedan, and basically paid for them to take him out, is the prosecutor's story and what they are charging him with, among others, basically a ton of other, gang-related offenses and firearms and drugs that they found in his home. And Young Thug's already been in jail for over a year now, something along the lines of over 500 days. And so this trial has been pushed out for a very long time for a lot of kind of crazy reasons and just random reasons. There were upwards of 700 witnesses that they were going to call on. They whittled that down, apparently, to 400 potential witnesses. And that means that the prosecutors or lawyers can pull on anyone from this one of 400, but there's likely not going to be that many. However, it's estimated that this trial could take a year in and of itself, which is frickin' wild. It's a 95-page indictment against YSL, which is both the supposed gang, and the record label, which is actually under Warner Music Group. But there was even a supposed relationship between a court deputy and a defendant that messed up the proceedings, as well as a potential juror who was late had to write a 30-page essay, and a tardy lawyer supposedly had to buy everyone lunch from a famous Atlanta strip club, is where they ended up buying that lunch from, for also being late, because the judge in the case didn't want to continue to delay things. So that's crazy. But where it really gets hilarious and truly takes on the humor of simply existing in this world is, so a lot of what the prosecution is bringing in includes some of Young Thug's own music and his lyrics, right? And, well, his name is Young Thug. So what did his lawyer say? I'll tell you what his lawyer said. This is his argument. Quote, he insisted everybody call him Young Thug, and that fit into the appearance of the gangster rap. But most people think about a thug as a criminal. But to Jeffrey, aka Young Thug, thug had a different meaning. Thug meant something very personal. If you could ever make it as a musical artist and help his family, himself, and as many others out of this endless cycle of hopelessness, he would be truly humble under God. That's what thug means. So, thug actually means truly humble under God. I mean, the lawyer is lawyering. That we cannot deny. It gets even better that Young Thug's, one of his biggest songs called Pushin' P, actually means pushing positivity. So of course the internet is having a great time with that as everybody's listening to Pushing Positivity by Truly Humble Under God. Stay tuned. It just gets better. I mean, obviously we're still dealing with an actual case, and that in and of itself, is not like, it's obviously serious, but we're on Easily Entertained podcast. Okay. So you can get your long crime from long crime, but I will talk about long crime. That's confusing of me to even say, but I just really wanted to share that with you. And I can go into more depth onto this trial if you would like, but it gets pretty legal word salad. You know what I mean? The legal word salad does continue, as A$AP Rocky's legal battles have been ongoing since the later part of 2021. By the way, A$AP Rocky's actual name is Rakeem Myers. Rakeem Myers. Guess we're going with Myers. You decide. Mayers. Myers. Anyways, A$AP Rocky. There was another A$AP Mob member, Terrell Efron, who is also known as A$AP Relly. A$AP Relly is alleging that Rocky shot him with a semi-automatic firearm during a fight in Hollywood in November of 2021. And A$AP Rocky has continually denied this, and the trial has not yet happened. And A$AP Rocky's currently out on $550,000 bond while welcoming his second child with Rihanna. So that's no bueno. But that in and of itself is a trial that is awaiting its time. Meanwhile, during this time leading up to the trial, A$AP Rocky's attorney, Joe Tacopina, who has also represented former President Trump in his lawsuits with Stormy Daniels and E. Jean Carroll, has kind of gone out and supposedly painted Efron, or A$AP Relly, the one who's claiming that A$AP Rocky shot him, as a jealous and embittered former associate, and simply, quote, trying to get money from Rocky. So now A$AP Relly is pissed at Rocky's lawyer and is hitting a second lawsuit against Rocky and the lawyer for defamation. And who did he hire for this separate defamation suit? None other than Camille Vasquez, who represented Johnny Depp in his lawsuit against Amber Heard. So, if you didn't know, now you know that celebrities also share attorneys. So that's fun. Yeah, both are awaiting litigation, essentially. And A$AP Rocky is denying all of this and claims that it was another guy that got messed up in the fight and who did it. We'll see. But it's pretty clear that this kind of backdrop of rap is causing a lot of problems, But that's really where I'm going to leave that at there, because that's not a place for me to get involved. Anyways, what else we got? We got Taylor Swift in a quick veer to the right. Taylor Swift was nominated Time's Person of the Year of 2023, as one can imagine. And the whole in-depth article is really interesting and really good to read. And of course, Taylor had a lot of good shit to say. She opens up about the Kim and Kanye debacle, which, if you do not recall, was essentially what led up to Taylor Swift's Reputation album, because the world was super fucking mean to her after this kind of falsely, kind of fabricated video came out, in which Kanye calls Taylor Swift and asks if he can reference her in his song. It's like, I made that bitch famous. He didn't really, I don't know. It's just after he also had interrupted her after she was given an award to say that Beyonce deserved it and stole the mic. You know that moment. And it really sent her down a spiral when Kim released this video being like, Taylor knew, when in reality, she didn't know that he was going to be like calling her a bitch and stuff and saying all, anyways. And the video was kind of misleading. So the public really turned on her back then, and she kind of apparently went to a foreign country and spent some time there and really holed up because she did not like the limelight and the way people were treating her at the time. And of course, it's no surprise that she has been the person of the year. You can't scroll any social media timeline without seeing her. She has caused economic booms wherever she goes. The Eras Tour was all anyone could talk about. And the show and her performance itself is undeniably impressive. The show spans over 180 minutes, including 40 plus songs from at least 9 albums. She said there are 16 costume changes, pyrotechnics, and optical illusion in which she appears to dive into the stage and swim, and not one but 2, quote, cottagecore worlds that feature an abundance of moss. And I'm reading this straight from the interview because I find this interesting. In the past, Swift jokes she toured, quote, like a frat guy. This time, she began training 6 months ahead of the first show. Every day I would run fast on the treadmill, singing the entire set list out loud. She said, fast for fast songs and a jog or a fast walk for slow songs. Her gym, Dog Pound, created a program for her incorporating strength conditioning and weights. Then I had 3 months of dance training because I wanted to get it in my bones. I wanted to be so over-rehearsed that I could be silly with the fans and not lose my train of thought. She worked with choreographer Mandy Moore, recommended by her friend Emma Stone, who worked with Moore on La La Land. And, I mean, can you imagine that? So she also stopped drinking because she said, doing that show with the hangover, I don't want to know that world. And I don't blame her. I can do hardly anything when hungover, much less run around and dance and sing and play with the crowd and be present. So the interview goes on, and it really is interesting. It's a deep dive into kind of her whole experience this year and working with Barbie as kind of the whole year was a little bit of a ode to women, and I'm here for it. And of course, couldn't leave you without a little bit of a quote on her relationship with Travis Kelce, in which she says, "This all started when Travis very adorably put me on blast on his podcast, which I thought was metal as hell." She says, "We started hanging out right after, and pretty quickly we got to know each other. By the time I went to that first game, we were a couple. I think some people thought that was our first date at that game. We would never be psychotic enough to hard launch a first date." The larger point for her is that there's nothing to hide. When you say a relationship is public, that means I'm going to see him do what he loves. We're showing up for each other. Other people are there and we don't care, she says. The opposite of that is you have to go to an extreme amount of effort to make sure no one knows that you're seeing someone, and we're just proud of each other. And you know what, Taylor? So are we. Well, I think that's about all my blessed throat and voice can handle for today. Thank you so much for listening. I have and do appreciate all of your kind words of support, and I love that you are getting something out of this. So if you are, please, please, please do me a favor and leave a review. Rate this baby, preferably 5 stars, on Apple Podcasts, and keep sharing. Share with your friends, your family, anybody that you think would be interested and enjoy this kind of shit. Well, as always, it has been a time and a half, and we're in Christmas season now, homies. Best time of the year. So you know what? Enjoy yourself, okay? Drink some peppermint schnapps. It's good for you. And I'll talk to you soon. Okay, love you. Bye.